Hello, welcome to VMC. I'm Dr. M. Today we are going to dive into the topic of separation distress. So many people have a lot of misconceptions about what this is, what it looks like, and what you should do about it. So join me, you'll learn something today. First, let's cover what separation distress behaviors often look like. So the dog or cat is usually going to be destructive or disruptive. This might mean chewing on items, digging, especially around doorways or windows. They might howl or meow or whine or cry. They might pace, urinate, or defecate. They might be drooling. They might not want to eat while you're gone. They might also start to show anxious behaviors when you are getting ready to leave. Most people have kind of a series of steps that become predictor cues to your pet that you are about to leave the house, and they will start to feel anxious at the sight of those things happening. We do have some research into the cause of separation distress, but no definitive answers at this point, and it's very possible that it's a multifactorial issue. There seems to be a bit of a link to genetics. There also is a link to poor socialization practices and not actively working on teaching dogs how to spend time on their own. This is a skill that we need to be teaching all of our pets. This is not something we can just expect them to know. And actually, quite young puppies and kittens, when they are just forced into a kennel and left, their body is telling them that they are too young and vulnerable to be left alone, and they will feel a lot of distress in this situation. So if we just force them to feel all of that distress because we aren't teaching them this skill, then that distress tends to worsen. So the best thing that you can do is work with a skilled positive reinforcement trainer from the very moment that a new pet joins your household in order to teach them this skill of how to be by themselves. There does also seem to be some link between drastic changes in a pet's routine or life and that causing some separation distress. So think about animals that are abandoned or that change households all of a sudden, or if there's been a dramatic change in a household schedule, if additional people have come into or left the household that they're a part of, if they have moved, and any other stressors that the pet might feel. All of those things can contribute to causing separation distress. So it's a good thing to be aware of so that if you know a stressor is upcoming, that you can support your animal as best as possible. As always, when we talk about behavioral concerns, we absolutely must first rule out any possible medical issue that could be contributing. I think about pets that feel itchy. They might have a hard time settling. They might pace, they might lick, they might chew. I think about pets that haven't received very good house training. I also think about animals that have medical issues that can cause them urgency with defecation or urination. There's a long list of potential medical issues that could result in animals having the symptoms that we discussed earlier. So working with your veterinarian to rule all of those possibilities out. There are also other behavioral issues that can cause similar symptoms. So it's crucial that we can get video of what the animals do when we aren't around. Thankfully, nowadays, there are quite cheap video camera options, other behavioral things that can contribute to some of the same symptoms using punishment, especially around house training. We also have to consider that some animals might be marking instead of urinating, or we could have some incomplete house training. I also have to mention an incredibly common issue, which is a lack of enrichment. So many cats and also an awful lot of dogs simply do not get adequate enrichment in their daily lives. And when they aren't given appropriate outlets for their species-specific behaviors, then they will be unable to rest if you are not home. It's crucial that we are meeting our pets' mental enrichment needs and physical enrichment needs before expecting them to spend any period of time resting. Now let's address some myths and misconceptions that I hear about all the time. Often what I hear from people are sentiments along the lines of, my cat is stubborn, or my dog is mad at me, so he is destructive while I'm away, or my cat is mean or awful. And these animals aren't any of these things. They are panicking, and we need to feel immense empathy for them instead of being upset at the destructive and disruptive behaviors that they are doing, because their brain is so upset and distraught that all of that distress comes out as the behaviors that we notice. I also hear things like, oh, just shove them in a crate while you're gone. This is not an appropriate thing to do because it does not address the underlying distress that the brain is feeling. And being enclosed in a smaller space often worsens the distress, and then we have an animal that's much more likely to be injured or harmed because they are panicking and they're digging or chewing, trying to get out. The number of injuries that I see from people who do this, it's just catastrophic, and you must not do that to your pets. You have to address the underlying anxiety, distress, fear that the learner is feeling, and that is the only appropriate way. So instead of using a crate or getting a stronger crate, it is generally better for the animal to be set up into a room. We need to remember that spending time in a kennel is a skill that needs to be taught. And I'm not saying don't teach it. We should be teaching it, because at some point in almost all of our pets' lives, they will need to be in a kennel. It's just not the answer for animals that are feeling separation anxiety. I also often will have people tell me that they come home to some destructive behaviors and they will say, oh, he knows it was wrong because he looks guilty. This is not what's going on at all. That behavior that you notice when you come home, those are appeasement behaviors. Your pet has learned that sometimes when you come home, you're angry. And so they are begging you, please don't be angry, please don't be angry. They do not connect the things that they did however long ago with you coming home and being mad. All you are doing is worsening the distress and fear that your pet is feeling. So even though it can be very upsetting to come home to these sorts of things, it is crucial that we are not yelling at our pets, that we aren't hitting them or shoving their noses into things that will worsen these behaviors. And it doesn't teach them how to be alone. All it teaches them is that sometimes as a human, you're scary. Animals that are doing destructive and disruptive behaviors when you are gone are not being malicious. When we have separation distress, these animals are experiencing so much fear and upset and anxiety and distress. They are panicking. This is a place where we need to be incredibly patient and empathetic and work hard to address that distress. It's worth the work to do this. And when approached well, it is generally incredibly successful, which is also great. If you have a topic that you would like me to cover in the future, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I do put out a new video most Fridays, so I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.